Hello, my name is Philip Kennedy, MD, PhD. I received my MD degree from the University College Dublin in Ireland way back in 1972, and I received my PhD from Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois in 1983. My research interests are in brain-to-computer interfacing. Our focus right now is to restore conversational speech to people who are locked in. That is, they're paralyzed and cannot speak. We know how to do this offline. Now we want to do it online. I have written a book called Get a Move On, Neuron. It is beautifully illustrated by Mark Herron. The book aims to explain as best it can how the brain works, and also, more specifically, how the brain controls movement. It's a fun book. It was originally written for children, but I don't know of any adult who did not enjoy this book. So let's go to chapter 1 and start the fun. As you can see, chapter 1 is your personal computer. Hello there. I've been elected by my friends to tell you a few things about the most amazing computer on earth, your brain. It's amazing because it's unlike any other computer that's ever been made. I can't wait to share some of my knowledge, and you've got a lot of scientific information to cover, so let's get started. Oh, by the way, I'm a neuron. You may think your brain is just one big computer, but it's not. Inside your head are billions of tiny computers, more than all the computers in the world. They're called neurons. Here's a photo of me when I was younger. Most of us neurons are so small that 1,000 of us could fit across the nail of your little finger. From the body of each neuron extends lines of communication called phone lines, so we neurons can stay connected and talk to each other. These phone lines are called axons. Some axons are very long and stretch from the top of your head all the way down your back. Others are much short as an eyelash. Neurons send messages to each other over these phone lines using pulses of electricity. We know what each message means by how quickly or slowly the pulses arrive. It's kind of like our language. Some of us can send pulses hundreds of times each second. But your brain is not just a collection of little computers that form one big computer. Like I said, it's a very different kind of computer, different from any known today, with very special areas for very specific jobs. As you can see from the figure, there's an area for hearing, smelling, feeling inside, speaking, moving, figuring things out, sensing, associated, seeing, and balancing. There are billions of neurons in your brain, sending and receiving messages all the time. But neurons are very picky about what part of the brain they talk to. The special messages they send only have meaning to those places they're intended to go and the special jobs they do. Just a few examples. Messages from your eyes only go to the place for seeing. It's mainly behind your eyes, but this area goes all the way to the back of your head. Messages from your ears only go to the place for hearing, which is close to your ears. Messages from your nose only go to the place for smelling, located above your nose. But those axons, or phone lines, don't stop there. After delivering their special message to their special places, the information is then sent on to other parts of the brain. Say, your mother calls you for dinner. Johnny, dinner's ready. The sound of your mother's voice enters your ears, and pulses of electricity travel along the axons to the place in your brain for hearing. From there, the message travels to the place for how you feel about it, then to the place for associating, then on to the place that figures things out. But what if you don't feel hungry? Neurons in the feeling place probably won't be all that excited about eating, so the message to get a move on isn't sent on. Johnny, come to dinner now. When Mom calls again, your figuring place may begin to worry or wonder what will happen if you don't go. Will Mom be mad? Will you get in trouble? If neurons in your figuring place figure she'll be mad, they will probably overrule the feeling place. And the moving place gets the go-ahead from the feeling place. Yes, ma'am. The moving place then sends the message to your muscles so you can get a move on and walk to the dinner table. Even scientists don't know how these messages start. Maybe you'll grow up to be the scientist who figures it out. What they do know is that messages arrive at specific places in your brain for getting specific jobs done. Then they're sent on to other areas of your brain to finish the job. In other words, to get a move on, and it all happens in a split second. I told you your brain is an amazing computer. FYI, besides electrical pulses, there are other ways messages can be sent. I'll be explaining those soon enough, but I don't want to overload your figuring place just yet. For now, let's test your memorying place. You see the brainy test? There are 5 questions. If you go back into this chapter, you'll be able to answer all those and get an A. Chapter 2. The place for figuring things out. No, a boxing ring is not the place where you figure things out, but it is a clever way to show you what each half of your brain looks like. You guessed it, a boxing glove. See? Pretty cool, huh? But like I said, our brains come in 2 halves. So picture 2 boxing gloves side by side with the thumbs on the outside, and you get an idea of how the whole brain looks. The 2 sides of your brain. Interestingly, the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, and the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. The 2 sides are connected in the middle by a bridge called a corpus callosum, which allows messages to cross from one side to the other. If the corpus callosum is damaged or cut, then the right side won't know what the left side is doing. Now, put the palm of your hands against your forehead. Let your fingertips touch your head. Under your palm is the frontal cortex. That's one of the figuring places. The part under your fingertips is another. It's called the association cortex. This part of the brain connects the dots, so to speak, where you link ideas together and associate them. The frontal cortex receives messages from all over the brain, the moving place, the place for balance, seeing, hearing, smelling, speaking, and others. Especially important are those messages from the feeling place and the association place. The frontal cortex helps us make important decisions, like going to dinner or not. If you did not have a frontal cortex, your figuring place wouldn't work very well. Your memory wouldn't be good either. You wouldn't be able to remember if you liked hamburgers or chicken better, and you couldn't figure out what to do when Mom called. The association cortex links these kinds of ideas together, then sends these associated messages to the frontal cortex, which then decides what to do. If your frontal cortex is working properly, it'll probably tell your neurons to get a move on. The association cortex allows the right side of your body to communicate with the left. It may sound strange, but people with damage to the association cortex can no longer see the connection between both halves of their bodies, so they ignore one side or the other. Again, the side opposite the damaged area. For instance, if asked to make a drawing of themselves, they'll only draw one side of themselves, or only dress one side. Okay, I'm ready for school. However, they still feel both sides, and if you touch either hand while their eyes were closed, they'd feel the touch. But if you touch both their hands at the same time, you'd think they only touched one. They receive the message from each hand, but a damaged association cortex won't link the sensations together. This condition is called sensory neglect. Association with the emotion in someone's voice may also be neglected, because that message doesn't reach the feeling place. Someone who suffers from sensory neglect would not make the connection. So even if their mother called in an extremely irritated voice, they wouldn't even know that she was mad. Note that moving neglect or damaged side of the body may also be very difficult or appear clumsy. Brainy test. There are 9 questions. If you go back through this chapter, you'll be able to answer all 9 questions. Enjoy. Have fun. Chapter 3. The feeling place. The feeling place is the place that tells you if you are feeling happy or sad, mad or glad, good or bad, and many other emotions. It's located just about in the center of your brain. If you put your hand, make a C shape, put this C above your ear, fingers pointing backwards. This marks the area, one on each side, where the feeling place is. It's called the limbic system. Near the front of the C are a collection of neurons called a nucleus. This collection of neurons sends messages by those telephone lines all along the C and out to all the other places for figuring, associating, moving, memory, thirst, hunger, seeing, hearing, and smelling. It is also where memories are stored. You guessed it, it's a memory bank. Can you picture your first bicycle or baseball glove? When you're excited and pleased, pictures and feelings are often clearly and permanently printed on your mind. Even years later, the images and emotions are right there, printed on your nuclei. Fearful memories are often printed there too. It's easier to remember a feeling of excitement or fear. Strong messages sent from the feeling place make a big impression on the memory place. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to remember something when you're anxious, fearful, or troubled about something? The neurons in the memory place can get so busy sending and receiving messages that they become confused, so your memory doesn't work very well. The feeling place can also affect your moving place. Have you ever felt paralyzed by fear? Have you ever moved faster because of excitement? Well, it all begins in this feeling place, then on to the figuring place, and the association place, and the moving place. And your neurons do it all in a split second. Another important job of the limbic system is to help you sort through the messages coming in from the skin, eyes, ears, nose, and other senses. The limbic system allows you to select, pick and choose what information is important. If there's something wrong with your feeling place, you won't have any energy. You'll be mentally tired. You won't process information properly or learn things easily. If your mom or dad comes home from work, try to get them to laugh. Soon they'll feel much better. Laughter is the best medicine for this feeling place. Brainy tests. There are 8 questions. So, if you go back to this chapter, you'll be able to answer all of these correctly. Have fun. Chapter 4, the moving place. Draw a line just above your ear to the top of your head. In front of this line, along the outside surface of your brain, is the motor cortex, which is one of the special places for moving. It's connected to a golf ball-sized collection of computers and nuclei that do a similar job deep inside your brain, and that's called the basal ganglia. The motor cortex receives messages from many places in the brain. The figuring place, the associating place, and of course the feeling place. But the motor cortex also receives sensation messages from the skin and muscles, sight, hearing, and balance. The motor cortex is the central station for moving, sending the most important messages down through your brain, through the nerves in your back and trunk, along the muscles in your arms and legs, controlling movement and balance. In the motor cortex, there are areas that control each limb and muscle group in the body. In the area that controls the arm, for instance, there's a place that sends messages to the upper arm, lower arm, fingers, and thumb, with more neurons assigned to the thumb and fingers, since grasping movements are more complex. So the message to move is sent from the figuring place along the axons to the moving place and are directed to the area needed to complete that particular movement. No one knows how the idea first gets started and then is directed, but neuroscientists do know something about the messages sent to the basal ganglia. When you hear your mom call you to dinner, the special place for figuring things out kicks in. The general idea of moving forms in your brain. The message is sent along the motor cortex and then to the basal ganglia, where clusters of neurons determine how to proceed, and the messages change from a general idea to a specific one. Then messages are sent back up to the motor cortex before going down to the spinal cord and muscles. Some neuroscientists have put tiny microphones beside these little computers and listened to them talk. These neurons are thinner than a hair. Imagine how small the microphone must be. Nevertheless, they've listened to neurons talking while movements are made. The language consists of pulses of electricity that fire in fast or slow patterns. Listening to their chatter has told us a lot about how movements are made. Still, it's a confusing code. Some fire when you're deciding to move, but not when actually moving. Some neurons fire fast when movements go in a certain direction, and slow down when movement goes in the opposite direction. Phew! While listening to neurons talk during movements, neuroscientists have created maps showing how different parts of the brain control the different movements. As expected, the right side of the body is mapped on the left side of the brain, and the map of the left side is on the right brain. Messages travel along the axons, cross the corpus callosum, down the spinal cord, and to specific muscles. Another way of learning about the moving place is by tickling. Instead of using the microphones for listening, scientists can pass a tiny current of electricity through a cluster of neurons. This tickles them, and they send a message to make a small movement. The listening maps and the tickling maps are very similar. Okay, it's dinner time, and your mother calls you. You decide to go. Your neurons make all the right connections. Your muscles move correctly, and you start for the door. But you trip over the dog. Why don't you lose your balance and collapse on the floor? Well, before that happens, the messages pass through the balancing place. Brainy test. There are 7 questions. Just go back through this chapter and you'll be able to answer them all correctly. Have fun. Chapter 5. The balancing place. Put your hand on the back of your head just above your neck. That's the balancing place. It's called the cerebellum. Like other special places in the brain, the cerebellum is divided into 2 parts, one on the right, one on the left. But unlike the other parts we've discussed, the right half affects the right side of the body and the left half the left side of the body. Funny, huh? Deep inside your cerebellum, there are 4 nuclei on each side that receive messages from the muscles, skin, and especially the moving place. After listening to all these messages, the 4 nuclei sort them out and decide where to send these messages. Think of the 2 trains on 2 separate sets of tracks, delivering messages to the cerebellum. One runs all the time, We'll call it the regular train. And one only runs when super important messages need to be delivered. We'll call it the super train. The regular train carries all sorts of messages about your body, where it happens to be, what it's doing, how it feels. When everything is in balance, the super train doesn't even run. But as soon as you lose your balance, the super train fires up and streaks into the station with its important message to correct any balancing problem while delaying the regular train. Purkinje neurons, pronounced Purkinje, are where the two trains meet. These neurons are shaped like shrubs in pots. The pot is the body of the neuron, and the branches are called dendrites. There are millions of these Purkinje neurons receiving regular and super important messages. The regular messages travel along telephone lines that are strung from one bush of dendrites to the next. Because they travel by side, they're called parallel fibers. Those messages excite the Purkinje neurons, which in turn send messages from the bottom of the pot to the large nuclei deep inside the cerebellum. From there, the messages go on to other special places. The super important messages, like those to restore balance, arrive at the Purkinje cells from one special nucleus outside the cerebellum called the inferior olive. They travel on different kinds of telephone lines called climbing fibers, which climb up the shrubs in the pots and cling closely to the branches, like ivy clings to a tree. The climbing fibers bring super important messages from the olive below, while the parallel fibers bring regular messages. The fast messages excite the Purkinje neurons 100 times per second or more, but the climbing fibers just a few times per second. When a slow-moving message arrives at the Purkinje neuron, the fast messages can no longer excite the Purkinje neuron and stays quiet for as long as a few seconds. This quiet period allows other Purkinje cells to get their messages through to the deep nuclei and on out to other special places. Test your cerebellum. Close your eyes, reach far out to the side with one arm, and try to touch your nose with the tip of your index finger. Easy, isn't it? Even if you didn't touch your nose correctly, try it again and you will. If your cerebellum was damaged, you couldn't be that precise with your movements. So when your mother calls you and you finally stand up, you don't fall over. Even if you trip over the dog, lightning-quick messages are sent to your balancing place. The cerebellum uses information from your eyes, inner ears, limbs, and body, so your leg may shoot forward, your arms extend. However, your body needs to adjust to restore your balance. Someone who has damage to the cerebellum cannot stand up without wobbling, or when reaching for a cup, reaches too far, or perhaps not far enough. And if they pick up a cup, they'll probably still spill what's in it. Brainy tests. 9 questions. Once again, go back over this chapter and you'll be able to answer them all correctly. Have fun. Chapter 6, Muscle Communication. There's a thick bundle of axons and neurons that run from the brain all the way down your spine. It's called the spinal cord. On each side of this cord, there are nerve twigs that branch out to muscles, joints, and skin. These axons are called nerves. Like the brain, the spinal cord also has maps of the body. In the neck is a map of your arm. Midway is a map of your chest and stomach muscles. In your lower back, there's a map of your legs. Messages are sent back and forth along this route, but all messages are processed in the spinal cord. Like vegetables in a blender, the messages are chopped, shredded, pureed, and changed before they're sent on. This processing occurs at all levels of the spinal cord. So, the spinal cord is really a series of processors stacked on top of each other. If the spinal cord is damaged in an accident, like a broken neck, messages about movement and balance sensation are blocked, and the muscles don't get the message. Also, messages from skin, joints, and muscles are blocked from traveling up to the brain, so you cannot move or feel. This is called paralysis. So your mother calls you for dinner, and your figuring place gives the okay. Then the neurons in your moving place, the motor cortex, send messages to the balancing place, the cerebellum, and back to the basal ganglia motor cortex before going down the spinal cord. They are also processed and mixed with messages from muscles, skin, and joints. The final result is a good meal, a good movement. Brainy test. There are 5 questions. Check over this chapter and you'll be able to answer all of them correctly. Chapter 7. Muscles do the work. Neurons carry the messages, but the muscles do the work. Muscles are made of fibers that look like rows of skinny ribbons. You have 2 kinds of muscle fibers, fast and slow. Fast muscle fibers twitch quickly but tire easily. Slow muscle fibers twitch slowly and tire slowly. Most muscles are mixtures of fast and slow fibers. Each feeds on different kinds of energy. The fast fibers use sugars from your blood and don't need much oxygen, but slow fibers use lots of oxygen and burn it for energy. Fast fibers make your hands and eyes move quickly, like when you play a computer game. The slow fibers help you do things like sit upright when you play. The muscles in your limbs contain many long fibers. Notice if you flex your biceps, the muscle gets shorter. Inside your muscles are tiny finger-like fibers. Hold your hands up with your fingertips touching. Then slide your fingers together. When the muscles flex, they get shorter, and the tiny fingers slide together just like your own fingers. That's how muscles lie across joints, like elbows or knees that move the limb. As a message to move comes down from the brain, through the spinal cord processor and to the muscles, it travels along nerves that branch out into the muscles. Electricity travels from the nerve ends to tiny tubes filled with a salty fluid. As the electrical pulses arrive, a special salt called calcium is released in the tiny tubes inside the muscle. All around each tube, there are thousands of little legs that start to run as they're flooded with the calcium. The legs on one tube grip the legs on the tube beside it, and by running, make the fingers slide together. When the pulses of electricity stop, the calcium stops, the legs stop running, and the fingers stop sliding. They slide apart again as the muscle relaxes back to its usual length. The messages that make the muscles tense come from the spinal cord and by way of alpha nerve fibers. The alpha nerves send the messages to make the muscles tense up. Stand on your toes and reach down to feel the back of your calf. Don't fall over now. Feel how tense it is. Now feel the skinny hard band above and behind your ankle. Sit down, relax your leg, and it goes soft and almost disappears. This band is called the Achilles tendon. It joins your calf muscles to your ankle. If you tear it or hurt it, you cannot stand on your toes. It contains nerve endings called 1B tendon afferents that send messages to the spinal cord processor about tension in the muscles. Tendons tell tension. There are also nerves that carry these messages back from the muscle to tell the spinal cord processor what's happening deep inside the muscle. These nerves, called 1A afferents, it's their job to regulate muscle length. These messages begin in special places called spindles. When the muscle shortens, messages from the spindle travel to the spinal cord processor, describing the length of change and how fast it changed. The spindle is attached to muscle fibers called intrafusal fibers that keep the spindles tense. If spindles aren't tense, their messages can't be sent on to the spinal cord processor. You might think these intrafusal fibers would lose their tension when the muscle shortens, and the spindle wouldn't be able to send the right message. But our bodies are truly amazing, and that's when a completely different set of nerves called gammas take over. These very special fibers don't accept messages from the alpha nerves. Although gamma nerves fire at the same time as the alphas, their only job is to keep those spindles tense. Only when the spindle is tense just right does it send the correct message back to the spinal cord processor. When they're tense, the message pulses are active. When they're slack, its message pulses almost stop. Test your own afferents, spindles, and gammas with the stretch reflex. Sit down, cross one knee over the other. A simple tap just below the kneecap should cause your leg to kick out quickly, just slightly. This is the stretch reflex. It is best if someone else does it to you so you're not expecting it. When you tap your tendon, two messages are fired off to the spinal cord processor, one from the spindle concerning muscle length, and the other from the tendon tells about tension. Together with messages from the cerebellum, they decide how rubbery or stiff your muscles should be. So when your mother calls and you jump off the bed, you don't land in a heap because the tension in your muscles and the tendons is just right. Brainy test. There are 8 questions. Once again, you can answer these by going back over the text in this chapter. Have fun. Chapter 8, Sensations. Okay, we know muscles make you move, but what lets you know you should move? Sensations. There are special places in the brain that receive sensations or feelings that travel up the spinal cord from your skin and muscles. Most sensations travel from the spinal cord processor to the brain, where you become aware or conscious of what is happening. You may not always be aware of where your arms or legs are, but your cerebellum and your cortex are. Sensations come from nerves in your spindles, 1A spindle afferents, and tendons. But there are also nerves on the surface of your skin that respond to touch, whether heavy or feather light. Other sensations make you aware of pain, warmth, cold, and even vibration. The stretch reflex demonstrates that some movements are controlled by sensations in the spinal cord processor, not the brain, and don't even reach consciousness. If you touch something really hot, you actually pull your hand back before the sensation reaches your brain. Of course, people who have a damaged spinal cord may have a huge stretch reflex below the area of the damage because the spinal processor are no longer controlled by the brain and spin too fast. As the feelings travel up the spinal cord, they branch to the cerebellum for balance, then the thalamus, a large area deep inside the brain that receives messages from all over the brain, including the cerebellum. The thalamus can also stop messages from going any further. The messages that do go on reach the sensory cortex as a sensation. The thalamus and the cerebellum both have detailed maps of your body, and these maps are continually updated. Sensations from the left side of your body go to the right side of your brain, and the right side of the body go to the left brain. They know everything that's going on with you at all times. If the sensory map becomes damaged, say a thumb from injury, the feeling may be lost. But eventually, messages from the injured area will recreate a map beside the old one in the brain. This recreation can also happen the other way around too. If information can't get to the brain from the damaged area of the body, it will be replaced by a map from the next finger beside it. The old unused map shrinks, and the new finger map gets wider and wider. Brainy test. There are 8 questions, and you can answer them all by going back through the chapter. Chapter 9. All those special places. When your mother calls you to come to dinner, and the sound waves from her voice first hit your eardrum, they start sending messages that travel to all those special places in your brain. They travel along the axons as pulses of electricity. The messages pass through millions of computers in continuous waves, each sound producing yet another wave of information. From the hearing place, these waves move to places of feeling, associating, and figuring things out. There, decisions are made
and links are formed. Perhaps you hesitate, unsure if you're hungry or not. But she calls again, and the place that makes you feel happy or sad, or a little worried she might get mad, the limbic system, and you figure you had better go. Then the neurons in the moving place, motor cortex, kick in and make you get a move on. You jump off the bed and dash for the door. You may wobble a bit, but you don't fall because the balancing place, the cerebellum, is working just fine. Waves of messages from your motor cortex travel down your back to your spinal cord, where they're mixed with the messages being received from the muscles, the joints, and skin. After all these are processed, the muscles are told how they should move. The alpha motor nerves tell the big muscles to move your joints, and the gamma nerves talk to the little muscles through the spindles. The spindles send messages back to the spinal cord processor about the length of the muscle, 1A afferents. Sensors in the tendons send messages back about force, 1B afferents. The spinal cord processor knows exactly what state all the muscles are in as you dash across the room. And if you happen to trip over the dog, you do not fall because the messages are firing to the spinal cord processor from the skin, your joints, and muscles, correcting any problem. In a split second, the cerebellum and motor cortex make adjustments to stop you wobbling. Even though you don't consciously understand what just happened, your brain knows. It runs on automatic pilot. Scientists that study the brain are called neuroscientists. Today's scientists know a lot about the special places in the brain, where they are, what they do, what happens if they're not working properly, what neurons look like, how they talk to each other through their complex telephone system, and how neurons cooperate with each other in that wonderful and fascinating place called the human brain. But there are many vast questions that neuroscientists cannot answer yet. But we're still searching and researching and looking for the answers. Perhaps you can help. If you study real hard, maybe you'll become tomorrow's neuroscientist, a brain explorer that figures it all out. Brainy tests. There are 6 questions. The 6th one is to ask you to think of questions neuroscientists cannot answer. All the others are answered within the chapter. Have fun.
Hi, a word from the author. Get a Move on Neuron was born out of my desire to impart to young people my excitement and fascination with the workings of the human brain, and instill in them a pioneering spirit and vision for future exploration. I've simplified, as best I could, the incredible complexity of voluntary and involuntary reasoning and function that occur in virtually every split second of one's day. By illustrating the role of our lovable neuron, I've taken a routine event like mom's call to dinner to provide a rudimentary glimpse into this amazing chain reaction. I hope you enjoy the journey.
Some thoughts from my colleagues. Joseph Coyle, past president of the Society for Neuroscience. Thank you for sending me a copy of Get a Move on Neuron. I found it very readable, enjoyable, and scientifically sound. I would think that this book would be quite appealing to children 12 years old and thereabouts. This book is an assist to the field. And from the chairperson of the Society for Neurosciences Education Committee, I was favorably impressed by the effort that you have put into the manuscript. As a former junior high school science teacher and a person concerned with communicating the importance of the nervous system to young people, Get a Move on Neuron struck me as an outstanding way to provide young readers with a book that brings the nervous system into the realm of existence. I congratulate you on your effort. And from David McFarlane from Smart Tech Systems Engineering, this is terrific. From the homey, accurate description to the philosophical aside at the end. Good work. Much success to you. And from Gian Fahy, wonderful. From Judy Lauter, this would be an excellent place to start, even for college undergraduates. And from S&S Chakravorty, sounds like fun. And from Stefano Grovoni, I'd like to read this again. Maybe thank you so much. Some children of all ages to be great neuroscientists. Our focus right now in our research is to restore speech to those who are paralyzed and mute. They're locked in. Restoring their speech will make a massive difference in their lives. If you would like to support this effort, then please go on a website called Get a Move on Neuron. And on there, you will see a Silent Speech Foundation, which is a 501c3 foundation that gives you a tax deduction for your donation. Also, there's a play based on Get a Move on Neuron, and there's a teacher's manual as well. So they're all free. So just go on the website, getamoveonneuron.com, and enjoy. Thank you so much.